Valor Daharius.
Yeah,
scary dude. Valor Daharius. I don't know. Fucking sue me.
Valor Daharius, are you Aquarius? Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. A Song of Ice and Fire series, starting and almost done with A Game of Thrones. As usual, I'm Zach, sitting here next to me, not at all, once again, happy with my shenanigans. My brother Nate.
You don't have to edit these things, so when you pause way too long, it's unnecessary. Don't mock me.
Unnecessary.
And you draw things out. You draw out things so long. I'm all like bobbing along, and then I go from like George R.R. Like fuck you, man. Just spit it the fuck out. Jesus Christ. If you joined us last episode, we were reading Catelyn 8.
Yeah.
All right.
Catelyn has rejoined her son Robb Stark.
Which I think is very cool, because I feel as though the timeline is, very easy to tell at this point because of Tyrion's chapter that we're going to read. But yeah, so Catelyn arrived at Moat Caitlin, where she met with her son, finally.
Yeah.
And she gave him some great advice, essentially, learned of his battle plans to attack Tywin, and then figured out a nice little...
Well, she was testing him, seeing how much he knew, seeing if he was fit to lead and all this. He's 15, so she was basically dealing with the fact that her 15-year-old son is leading a host of war, so she wanted to really make sure he was ready. And the plan he...
with her assistance
proposed, was pretty smart, and so... that was what was decided as far as the northern armies, and then Catelyn had decided that she would not be returning to Winterfell. She would be going to Riverrun with Robb because she wanted to see her father and her brother. So that was where we left Catelyn.
And so this episode we'll be reading Tyrion 7, and it's going to be really cool because these last few chapters have been in fairly quick succession, and so to get the Lannister forces finally and seeing what their plan is and what they're doing is going to be...
So last time we saw Tyrion was in the Mountains of the Vale, the Mountains of the Moon, by the Vale of Arryn. And him and Bronn had run into some clansmen, and Tyrion was trying to talk his way out by offering them gold and lands and titles, and eventually the Vale of Arryn itself. Shit that they did not
want initially, but then, he got to the Vale.
And so with promises of steel and armor enough to equip them to be able to be a serious threat to the Knights of the Vale, apparently they joined him, because as we pick up with this Tyrion 7, we learn that Chella, daughter of Chaek of the Black Ears, had gone ahead to scout, and it is she who brought back word of the army at the crossroads.
And so from her best guess, they're about 20,000 strong, which, as we heard from both Robb and will learn, is accurate. It's a good number. And they're flying a red banner with gold lions.
Yeah.
And so we know immediately who those forces are. If you don't, then I don't know if this must be your first episode listening.
Bronn clarifies. He asks your father, and Tyrion says him or Jaime. It could be either one. And he says, we'll know soon enough. So at this point we get that, and obviously we're full spoiler reread, so we know already, but the clansmen have decided to ride with Tyrion and have escorted him and Bronn south quite a ways at this point. Or, south.
It's still a decent way. No, it's west.
It's just west.
Right? I mean, maybe so. Down the mountain.
You got the book with the
map.
The map, yeah. I kind of want to know now.
Well, because, it's the crossroads, and so it only goes 4 ways, and they're coming from the
Vale of Arryn.
The Vale, which is...
Bam.
Oh, there's the Vale. Sorry, we're looking at the map. Like, we should know this anyway, but...
The Red Fork.
Yeah, so
the Green Fork is where Tywin is.
The Green Fork.
Yeah, so up there.
Yeah, so they were heading west
from
the view. I was correct.
I can say, or you can cut it, whatever. Yeah, so they were heading west, they have made it to, we know, Tywin's camp now at this point. And so Tyrion surveys his little band of brigands here, the near 300 Stone Crows, Moon Brothers, Black Ears, and Burned Men, with Gunthor, son of Gurn, raising the other clans even now. So more we're going to be adding
on top
to this
of
force.
The 300 he's already raised.
Yeah.
And so he says that maybe it's a good idea if I head down there first by myself, which isn't a bad suggestion technically to sane people. You all look crazy. Let me ride down to the people that know me and explain, and then we'll bring you in.
Yeah, because he's wondering what his father's going to think of these clansmen.
And they're like, the clansmen are like, fuck that. No, we don't trust you. Yeah. We're going with you, and that's fucking that. Shagga, especially, immediately says, no, I'm going. You're not getting rid of me.
Yeah, he calls him Boy Man. He says, if Boy Man lies, I'll chop off his manhood and feed it to goats. And Tyrion gives his word as a Lannister that he would not betray them. But Chella says, why should we trust your word? Lowland lords have lied to the clans before. And Tyrion says, why you wound me, Chella? I thought we had become such friends. But as you will, you, Shagga Khan, Ulf, and Timett shall ride with me. The rest of you will wait here. So he's taking a leader from each one of the clans along with him.
And with that, he just turns and starts to ride away.
Yeah.
And as this occurs, we start just getting some backstory on the clans themselves. I only noted down the one that I really like the most, which I think is what most people like, and that's Timett, son of Timett. And he's a burning hand. Is it a burning hand?
Burning man.
A red hand, sorry. He was a red hand of the burning men.
Yeah.
Burned men. And so the burned men essentially have to, when they reach manhood, sacrifice something to the fire, to flame, to that. So it's kind of very Red Gods influenced. And so usually maybe a finger or, a toe or some little extremity. Crazy men are known to do an ear. Fucking Timett just stabs his eye with a fucking burning knife.
Yeah.
And so he was named a burning hand, a red hand.
A red hand.
Which is essentially like the tribe leader.
Yeah.
Just because you're the craziest motherfucker among us, and we don't want to fuck with you.
Pretty much.
And so it's Timett, son of Timett, is pretty badass. Did you write any of the other clans'
information? I did, but mainly what I thought it was interesting was that Tyrion just rides off, leaving them because he doesn't want to leave them with the choice. He doesn't want to leave them to discuss it because he thinks that the clans had an absurd notion that every man's voice be heard in council, which I think is, as far as this reread, we've kind of been looking at Tyrion in the light of a villain. The absurd notion of democracy, essentially, is what he's saying here. Mm-hmm. And he says that they argue about everything endlessly. Unless they all can agree on something, they don't do it. And so whether or not to take all the clansmen with them down to meet Tywin or not would take an argument that Tyrion doesn't have time for. So that's why he just wanders off. And then, he thinks that with all the description of the Timett and everything like that Tyrion leans over and says, I wonder what the burned men's king had to burn off to become king. And Bronn kind of just grabs his junk. But it says that even Bronn was kind of quiet around Timett. Timett. He respected this man's...
he's a prowess in being crazy and killing.
So at this point, we get that watchers are peering down at them from stone towers as they make their way through these foothills, and a low earthen wall had closed off the road with about a dozen crossbowmen manning the heights. So Tyrion halts his followers and, out of range of the arrows,
intelligently approaches by himself.
And rode alone and asks, who commands here? And the captain was quick to appear, and then even quicker to give them an escort when he recognized his lord's son.
Yeah, because, again, full spoiler, but for those who don't know, most people think he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
He was either up in the care of Aaron and captive, likely thrown out the moon door, or he was coming through the mountains there,
died there,
and people don't survive that.
Yeah,
and so
Yeah, no, everyone's pretty shocked when Tyrion shows up. So as they're given passage and escort, they trot past blackened fields and burned holdfasts to the green fork of the Trident. And Tyrion sees that there are no bodies, but the air is full of ravens and carrion crows, and there was fighting here recently. And so as they arrive at camp, a party of mounted horsemen ride forth to challenge them. And Tyrion recognizes the knight leading them. He's got a unicorn sigil as Sir Flemmet Brax, which I hate this fucking name. It just sounds like an industrial cleaner or something.
Flemmet Brax.
Put a little fucking Brax on it, and you'll get that stain right off.
So Sir Flemmet raises his visor in astonishment. He's just shocked as shit to see Tyrion. He tells him that we all thought you were dead, sir. And then he asks about Tyrion's group that he's brought along with him. And I lost my train of thought.
He calls them bosom friends and loyal compatriots.
Loyal retainers. And, so
he asks, where will I find my Lord Father?
Exactly.
And we learn that Tywin has taken the inn at the crossroads for his quarters, and Tyrion laughs. The inn at the crossroads. Perhaps the gods were just after all. And so that, I think, is relatively significant, that Tywin has literally seated himself sort of at this symbolic place of choice of decisions being made,
right?
And right now
and commanding it, like he's completely taken it over, because we learned as they trotted up that all the holdfasts in the fields were all burned.
And there's nothing left of
Tyrion noticed that there weren't any bodies, that it had just been burned. And so then to come up on the inn and his father's controlling this major focal point, which we went big into when Tyrion was here, when he was captured by Catelyn, which again, on top of all the significant events that happen here, just a crossroads in general has that significant meaning.
Well, this is
throughout.
this is very much so a crossroads for Tywin, because he underestimates Robb Stark.
Absolutely.
This is when Whispering Wood happens and we capture Jaime Lannister for the northern side. And so this is the Lannisters' own little crossroads here too. But I think it's definitely significant that Tywin is making this his seat of command, this place of choices and decisions. Right. So Tyrion says that he will see his father at once, and so Sir Flemmet shouts some commands and lets Tyrion and his men pass through. And we get that Lord Tywin's camp had spread over leagues, and Chella's estimate of 20,000 couldn't be that far off. So common men camped out in the open, while the knights had thrown up tents. And some high lords had erected pavilions large as houses, and Tyrion sees the red ox of the Presters, Lord Crakehall's brindled boar, the burning tree of Marbrand, the badger of Lydon, and different knights call out to him as he passed, some laughing, some actually in astonishment and
gaping openly at the clansmen.
Yeah, and Shaga was gaping right back. Yeah.
And Tyrion noted that it's good that the clansmen are seeing these men, like, because the clansmen are just as impressed by the number and how well armored,
the horses,
armed they are,
everything.
Just everything. And so the fact that they're so impressive will show that the Lannisters can back up what he had made these claims over, and so that'll help in commanding them.
Yeah, make them a little easier to command.
And so they pull into the inn stables, where Tyrion kind of just realizes that for the most part hasn't changed compared to the last time he's been here. Granted, everything around is burned.
Yeah, the rest of the village is just decimated. There's nothing left. And so we learn that a gibbet had been erected in the yard, which is a gallows.
Yeah.
And a body swung, covered with ravens, the birds flying off as Tyrion approaches. And he dismounts and glanced up to what remained of the corpse. The birds had eaten her lips, her eyes, and most of her cheeks, but it bared her stained red teeth in a hideous smile. And this is Marcia Heddle, who we learn quite a lot about in Catelyn's chapter originally, that she runs the inn at the crossroads. She has for a long, long time. That hideous red smile actually used to terrify Catelyn, and then she's continuing. We met her again during the Tyrion
when she wasn't
Catelyn.
Quite as pleasant as Cat had remembered, which made sense.
Yeah, and so Tyrion kind of dejectedly says, "A room, a meal, and a flagon of wine. That was all I asked."
It says he reminded her.
With a sigh of reproach.
Like,
you damn fool.
it's...
And so Shagga doesn't want to give up his horse to the stable boy. He starts getting pissed.
Yeah, he thinks that they're going to steal him.
But Tyrion assures him that the horse won't be harmed or stolen. They're just going to feed him and groom him and all that. So 2 guards in crimson cloaks and lion-crested helms stood at either side of the door to the inn. And Tyrion asks for his father and is told that he is in the common room. And it says that he entered the inn and there was father. And now Nate's going to read the introduction.
Yeah, I'm just going to read the description of Tywin because it's so damn good. We just need to hear it. Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, was in his middle 50s, yet hard as a man of 20. Even seated he was tall, with long legs, broad shoulders, and a flat stomach. His thin arms were corded with muscle. When his once thick golden hair had begun to recede, he had commanded his barber to shave his head. Lord Tywin did not believe in half measures. He razored his lip and chin as well, but kept his side whiskers, 2 great thickets of wiry golden hair that covered most of his cheeks from ear to jaw. His eyes were a pale green, flecked with gold. A fool more foolish than most had once jested that even Lord Tywin's shit was flecked with gold. Some said the man was still alive, deep in the bowels of Casterly Rock.
I don't think he's alive.
Nor do I.
But that is Lord Tywin fucking Lannister, who we've heard so much about at this point. And seated next to him at the table is Sir Kevin Lannister.
Now, I described Sir Kevin Lannister as Fat Tywin.
Wow.
Basically, he's a portly version. He's got the same, he's balding, a little bit of hair, but he also has the same sideburns on his cheeks. Yeah. I like Kevin.
Yeah,
I really like Kevin.
His father's only surviving brother, and they were sharing a flagon of ale as Tyrion enters. And Kevin is the one who sees Tyrion first, and he looks up and says, "Tyrion," in surprise. And Tyrion bows, saying, "Uncle and my lord father, what a pleasure to find you here." And Tywin does not stir, but gives Tyrion a long, searching look.
So before you say this, motherfucker, what a greatest first line from anybody I've ever seen in a book fucking series.
"I see the rumors of your demise were unfounded." And Tyrion says, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, father. There's no need to jump up and embrace me. We wouldn't want you to strain yourself." So, immediately, and I don't remember where I've heard it, but there was something, back when I was dabbling in my own personal writing that I read for like an author's tip, was that if you ever really want to learn who your character is, put them in a room with their parents, because that's when you can see a lot about who a character is. And so, and we get tons more here in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to draw attention to it, where Tywin's first concern, there is no concern. There is no surprise. There is no shock. This is just a new development for him. Yeah, so I had heard you were dead. That was untrue. I didn't necessarily buy into the rumor. I wasn't presented fact, so it could have happened, it could have not. So clearly it didn't. And Tyrion immediately was expecting a hug. "Oh, I'm glad to see you alive." Even though Tyrion is, 25, 26, 27 at this point. Tyrion knows Tywin isn't that going to do it, but he still is hoping that there's going to be this change.
And actually, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I'll draw attention to that same topic here in a minute as well.
And so, so Tyrion crosses over to the table where they are.
This is that moment.
And he becomes acutely conscious of the way his stunted legs made him waddle. Whenever his father's eyes were on him, he became uncomfortably aware of all his deformities and shortcomings.
So, and I feel like this is a big part of why it's okay to empathize with Tyrion, even if he is the villain, is he was mistreated. I mean, granted, he's got his fucking entitled sense of belief, but with regards to how he's a villain, or will be a villain, in our opinion, he he was led there, he wasn't always, he's not a bad, and that's how Martin writes, gray, not black and white, but because he's so fucked up and tormented by his father, he does get driven to these democracy is bad.
Well, that's it, because, like, we're getting this from Tyrion's point of view, but I 100% imagine that Tywin is just sitting there, his eyes not leaving Tyrion as he walks across, and just a look of disdain. And I wouldn't put it past Tywin to, in his head, be like, look at the way he fucking waddles around with that Lannister name on him. Like, well, and so I wouldn't. This is probably accurate. Him feeling this way is probably truthful because he's probably brought it up. Tywin has probably said that to him. You waddle like a fucking jackass with the Lannister name pinned to you. Like, so it immediately Tyrion feels insecure around his father. But keeping up that sort of bravado, he says, it was kind of you to go to war for me. And Tywin starts to kind of lay it out. He says, it was you who started this. Your brother Jaime would never have meekly submitted to capture by a woman. And immediately shames him. You're not a man.
Right.
It's a woman. Your brother would have fucking
Yeah, exactly. Your brother could have.
And Tyrion answers again with that self-defense sort of mechanism. That's one way Jaime and I differ. He is taller as well, you may have noticed. But Tywin just doesn't even fucking give that a response. And he says, the honor of the house was at stake. No one sheds Lannister blood with impunity and gets away with it.
Yeah, and then Tyrion was, well, technically speaking, none of my blood was actually shed.
He says, hear me roar first.
Oh, he doesn't grinning.
The Lannister pride.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, technically none of my blood was spilled. It was close.
However, Jack and, what was the other?
Mork.
Mork, that's it.
Mork were killed.
And Tywin's immediate response is, I assume you'll want more men.
Don't trouble yourself, father. I've acquired a few of my own. And then he just asks, so tell me, how is your war going? And Kevin is the one who answers, and he says, well enough for now. We were able to destroy most of Sir Edmure's troops that he had scattered along his borders.
Which we learned were the forces that were requested from Edmure to help the small folk.
Yeah, Piper and Vance.
And because they had been requesting help along the borders because they needed all the help they could, but that was, and we had learned, I forget which chapter it was, that was weakening Edmure's forces.
Yeah.
Because he was spreading himself thin. And here it is, we're learning that they...
I'm pretty sure it was Catelyn when she was the end of the year because she got the letter from him.
Right.
And so, this is when Tywin cuts in and says, your brother has been covering himself in glory. He smashed Lord Piper and Vance at the Golden Tooth and met the massed Tully powers under the Walk of River Run. Edmure Tully was taken captive along with many knights and loyal bannermen. Jaime has Lord Blackwood under siege at River Run currently. And so, again, he's delivering this report while shaming Tyrion all in the same breath. It's so fucking...
It's so brutal
to
and
watch.
Just calculatedly
it
thought
sucks.
out.
It sucks because I love Tyrion. And Kevin cuts in again and says, your father and I have been marching on the other lords' strongholds one by one. With Blackwood gone, Raventree gone. With Blackwood gone at River Run under siege, Raventree fell at once. Lady Went yielded Harrenhal for want of men to defend it, and Sir Gregor burnt out the Pipers and the Brackens.
Yeah, so Tyrion asks, well, that leaves us unopposed then? To which Kevin says that they still have the Mallisters and the Freys to deal with.
The Mallisters at Seaguard and Walder Frey is gathering levies at the Twins, but Tywin is not concerned about the late Lord Walder Frey.
Which seems to be the feelings around the continent.
Yeah, he says, no matter, Frey only takes the field when the scent of victory is in the air, and the only scent now is death.
And ruin.
So, Mallister lacks the strength to fight alone. Once Jaime takes River Run, they will be quick to bend the knee. Unless the Starks and the Arryns come forth to oppose us, this war is as good as won.
And I really like this next few parts here, because this is where Tyrion gets hit with some of the news he's missed out on while he's been away.
Yeah, Tyrion tells him that he shouldn't worry about the Arryns, because Lysa is fucking
crazy.
insane. But the Starks, on the other hand, Lord Eddard, and...
he gets cut off.
Yeah.
Lord Eddard is our hostage. we have him captive in the Red Fort.
He'll be leading no armies from the dungeons under the Red Keep.
Yeah, so Tywin explains that they have him hostage, but Robb is gathering forces in Moat Cailin. Now, this kind of part here, I feel as though means that Catelyn arrived maybe a day or two before this.
Yeah.
Like, at most. It might have been the night before, where then Robb is now mobilizing. Because I would think maybe 2 days. But if they're just moving the forces from Moat Cailin, and they're getting report of that, I would imagine Tywin has pretty quick communications, considering. And so I feel like she had just arrived there, and now they're marching, and so this is only a few days apart. Then you also have to remember that Cat had, because while Tyrion took his time getting captured and getting all the troops, Cat had to take the boat from White Harbor and then ride up to fucking there. And so I don't think that they have the news that Edmure's been taken yet.
Yeah, no.
Like, that's how recent some of that victory and that stuff is.
Yeah, well, yeah, because she's still trying to get to River Run to get to him. Like, she knows he's surrounded by enemies, but she doesn't know that unless she got a letter. Like,
well, so, and that's what I'm thinking. I don't think she's had time even now.
I think it's within a day or two.
Where she doesn't, Robb's forces don't even know that Edmure's captive yet.
But to all this, to Robb amassing a host at Moat Cailin, Tywin says that no sword is strong until it's been tempered. The Stark boy is a child. No doubt he likes the horns and the sound of the drums beating and his banners fluttering in the wind. But in the end, it comes down to butcher's work, and I doubt he has the stomach for it. And Tyrion reflects that things had gotten very interesting while he was away.
And then he wonders out loud how Cersei managed to get Robert on board with
what has our fearless monarch been doing while this butcher's work is being done? Essentially, how'd you get Robert to sit quiet during all this nonsense that's happening?
Ned gets captured and all that, and boom, Tywin lays it on him.
Robert Baratheon is dead, his father told him. Your nephew reigns in King's Landing. And it says that did take Tyrion aback.
And then he says, "Oh, you mean my sister's in charge?" Which is obviously, for the most part, the case, except for the fact that Joffrey's a little fucking masochist who does end up losing control.
The whole realm is going to be a different place with Cersei taking the helm. And so Tywin speaks up and says, if you have a mind to make use of yourself, Mark Piper and Carl Vance are loose in our rear. Raiding our lands across the Red Forks. And Tyrion tisks.
Wish I could, father. Wish I could.
Well, he said the gall of them fighting back. Normally, I'd be glad to punish such rudeness. But truth is, I have pressing business elsewhere. And Tywin, fucking do you? And he mentions that we also have a pair of Ned Stark's afterthoughts harassing my foraging parties. Beric Dondarrion, a young lordling with delusions of valor. He has that fat jape of a priest with him, Thoros of Myr. Think you might deal with them without making too much of a botch of it?
Now, once again, with the time frame, Tywin has more information on Beric and Thoros at this point, because as far as Robb knows, Beric and Thoros all died. Maybe they lived, maybe.
Well, like, this is,
but that's it.
We get the resurrection.
Exactly.
Here. This is him coming and fighting back and trying to get revenge for that.
So we get the initial hints that he's resurrecting without actually having any clue
because we didn't get a definitive he's dead, and then so this isn't necessarily a definitive he's alive.
Right.
Again, it's he apparently survived that initial attack, we would think,
but he did not.
Or normally on the first reread, you're probably not even picking that up. That the Derek and Eric, like it was some probably dumb lore. You're like, oh, whatever. And then this, you're like, oh, Beric Dondarrion is still out there. If you remembered him at all, because I honestly didn't. I wasn't paying attention to these
absolutely
motherfuckers.
Not.
So Tyrion smiles and gives his usual smart-ass response that he'll be happy to spank them along his way.
If he happens to cross paths with them.
Yeah, but then he says that he will need 3,000 swords, pikes, spears, breastplates, helms, fucking axes, swords, daggers.
When all of a sudden, the door fucking slams open, and the captain of the guards out there comes launching through it.
Yeah, Kevin jumps up, swearing, and Shaga steps in and, holding the man's sword, snaps it over his knee.
Fucking snaps it, yo.
And chucks the pieces to the ground, lumbering into the common room. And the other clansmen follow him in, Bronn with them, who kind of just shrugs at Tyrion, like,
Did my best.
What are you going to do?
Did what I could.
And so Tywin asks, who might you be? Cool as snow.
Cool.
Like, I imagine his, like, entire demeanor
He
hasn't
never
changed.
moved. Yeah,
like,
I
he's
agree.
just fucking sitting there now, like, just his eyes move to them as they came in. That's about it.
And Tyrion is like, oh, they followed me home, father. Please, can I keep them? Please. Which is fucking funny.
Kevin is pissed.
Yeah, he
By
is.
what right do you savages intrude our councils?
And the clansmen go off on him.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck you.
Khan answers, we are free men. Free men, by rights, sit on all war councils. And so Chella asks, which one of you is the Lion Lord? And Kevin's hand goes to his hilt, but Tywin stays him with 2 fingers on his wrist.
See, and I like how he probably just gently reached over and placed those 2 fingers there. It wasn't like this quick response or this, like, obnoxious
Well, they were having
action.
ale together, so I imagine they were almost as close as we are, but just with, like, Tywin on the end of the table
Right.
and Kevin next to him. And so when Kevin stood up, I imagine he, like, reached and is almost right there, and Tywin literally just had to reach up and just, like...
But that's it.
Yeah.
Just how subtle of a
The
movement it
calmest,
takes from him.
yeah. And so... Tywin seems completely unbothered, and he asks Tyrion, where are your courtesies? You haven't introduced our welcome guests.
And so Tyrion goes through, and the same guys that we named as we came down the hill, and he lists through, makes a big show of it, and then turns and introduces Tywin in the most formal way we've seen yet.
Which even seems to be some sort of, like, sense of pride from Tyrion.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Here is my lordly father. Because Tywin definitely seems to, like, in my head, he, like, puffs up. Because it says, after Tyrion gives this long-winded introduction, you know, Lord of Casterly Rock, Warden of the West, future and past hand of the king, yada, yada, yada. It says Tywin rose dignified and correct. Like,
yeah.
I like just the fact that this, like, even though it's someone he thinks so little of, is giving him his proper titles to these savages. Because you know Tywin's absolutely thinking they're savages. He just is thinking, how can I use these savages that my son has acquired?
That's what he has that Kevin doesn't. Is that, how can I capitalize on this mentality?
Yeah. Clearly they are following Tyrion around, so let me suss out what that's about and see where we go from there.
What I can do with it. And I put Tywin acting badass because of his raising up dignified and correct. He asks, why are you here?
Yeah, even in the West, we know of the prowess of the clansmen of the Mountains of the Moon.
Without ever realizing it, immediately, we see so much of Tywin in Tyrion. Because this is exactly what he did to the
This is what Tyrion
clansmen,
did, in the woods.
as well as to Catelyn's guards.
This is just Tywin having the actual, like, authority to just do it and say, let me do this for you right now.
Right, well, 'cause
I'll arm you and equip you.
he also introduced Bronn
yeah.
to Tywin when he introduced the clansmen, and he had said that this is Bronn the sellsword, nothing in particular. He's already switched sides 2 times, like blunt and up front, and yet he still has him following him, listening to his command, and so Tywin can see, like, and for Tywin to do the exact same manipulations and to play off their, that, you know,
well, there's a line
pride.
later, I think it's in Feast, where I think it's Gemma Lannister says
Lannister,
that, you know, Jaime, as much as everyone says it, Tyrion is your father's true son.
Right.
Like, he's the one who takes after him the most. He's the one I see the most of Tywin in, and it's because of that cunning, the way he immediately assesses people for what they want. What does this person want, and how can I use that? And that's what Tywin's doing here.
Exactly.
Why are you here escorting my son? What are you here for? And so Tyrion's about to fill him in on the whole nonsense, but a messenger quickly bursts in and tells them that the Stark host is moving down the causeway. And it says, Tywin Lannister did not smile. Lord Tywin Lannister never smiled. But Tyrion learned how to read his father's pleasure, and it was there on his face.
And Tywin says, "So the wolfling is leaving his den to play among the lions."
Yeah, this is what Tywin thinks is exactly what he wants to happen. A young, rash Robb Stark rushing in, but Robb is actually being intelligent.
Yeah, that's the cool thing is we know the true plan here now. And full spoiler, we know the outcome as well. But Tywin is just expecting Robb to either come and clash with him, or if it takes too long, lose his nerve and retreat. When really Robb knows that that's what he's expecting. And so he's split his forces, and he's going to go sneak off to the Whispering Wood.
Well, I think that's
river.
also harking back to what you said earlier, the lack of information. Tywin, I don't think, knows that Robb and Catelyn don't know Edmure's captured yet. So they're rushing to rescue him.
Exactly,
They're
to help
rushing to
give him
aid
reinforcements.
Yeah, and so they don't know that that's already done, and that might change their plans. If they already have him,
they may have
they
kept
might
their
have
troops
gone
in their
somewhere
army.
else. But it works in their favor. But I think that's just where it is George is kind of telling us that there's people acting on not all the information they have to go on. Whispering Wood ended up working in Robb Stark's favor, but then later there's a lot of information he goes on, and we get the fucking Red Wedding. So it's just this game is always being played, and people like Tywin Lannister are just gods at playing it.
Yeah, so Tywin issues some commands,
Yeah,
tells them to...
tells Sir Adam to fall back, to not engage the Stark hosts, harass their flanks instead, and draw them further south, and so he leaves. Kevin suggests staying and letting the Northerners break themselves on them here.
Which is where he explains what I had mentioned, where he doesn't want Robb to get too close, see the forces, and then retreat because they're coming too far south.
Yeah.
So he wants to meet them as soon as he can.
The sooner Stark is broken, the sooner I can deal with Stannis Baratheon. Send word to Jaime. I'm marching against Robb Stark. And Tyrion watched in grim fascination, and that right there is it. He idolizes Tywin as much as they despise each other. He idolizes
definitely.
him, and it's this. He learns from him, and so yeah, Tywin turns to the clansmen and says, "It's said your clansmen are warriors without fear. Ride with me against my enemies, and you'll have all my son promised you and more." And Chella, I think, asks, "We have the son's word. Why do we need the father's?" And Tywin, again, astute as fuck, just says, "I said nothing of need.
I was offering a courtesy, nothing more. You are more than welcome to not fight." And once again, and Tyrion even thinks, oh, very clever, that he says the winter men, what is it they call them? The Winterlands. The men of the Winterlands are made of iron and ice, and even my boldest knights fear to face them.
Yeah, Tyrion sees what he did there. He's challenging that.
That
fear of what may happen if you fight them. You're essentially calling them cowards or cravens and getting their whole masculinity, testosterone thing going where, no, we don't fear anything, we clansmen, we fight. And so, of course, Timett, son of Timett, speaks up and says, "The burned men fear nothing. Timett, son of Timett, will ride with the lions." And Khan speaks up saying he'll join them as well, as will Shaga. And Chella says that we will ride with you, Lion Lord, but only if your half-man's son goes with us. He bought his breath with promises. Until we hold the steel he pledged us, his life is ours.
And yeah, he turns and looks. Tywin turns his gold-flecked eyes at Tyrion. Their fucking names get me, man. They're all mixing me up. Tywin looks at Tyrion, and Tyrion says, "Oh joy." Okay? The end. Fuck.
We got there.
All right.
There's a tough finish line to cross.
A very fun chapter. Technically a very short chapter.
I mean, like, let's cut the bullshit. I love my boy Tyrion, but the best part of that introduction, that whole chapter, is the introduction of Tywin fucking Lannister.
Yeah, that's this chapter's point.
His presence is so looming throughout this book, and I just think it's brilliant that we get him toward the end here, because now he's really going to start becoming a thing for the next book.
Yeah.
2 books, where we're going to learn that Cersei is more of just kind of a petty bitch. Tywin is a fucking master manipulator, game player, war commander, he can pretty much do it all, and he's a much scarier threat than
Cersei Lannister,
which in turn goes to say that Tyrion might end up becoming
even more of a villain.
Someone fucking fear after idolizing his father.
Right.
Anyway, with that said, you got an inductee?
Yeah, so it's going to be for Kevin Lannister.
Oh, you stole mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, as soon as there was people coming in, like, you assume that they're coming to attack Tywin. Motherfucker was up and ready to protect his brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's right there in the command. He was a little harsh towards the
Yeah, he's a little
clansmen.
ignorant. He's got that lordly...
But that's always kind of something that's endearing to me. That's why I like Sir Creighton Longbow. They're just these... He's the heavier brother that's just there, doing what he can to help, and he just wants to live his best life.
Hitting a little close to home here.
Don't call me heavy.
Oh, sorry.
I saw that subtle. So you get to pick a new one.
Now I'm gonna get called out by our listeners for
fat
being mean to
shaming.
you again. Jesus Christ, I'm mean to him.
I know, right?
Anyway, I'll still induct Kevin, but my reasoning was different, and that's because we are full spoiler reread. What happens to him at the end of Dance? He essentially, we are told that Kevin Lannister is sort of a good person who's going to help hold the realm and stitch the realm back together by the events of Dance that have ripped everything apart. And that's why he needs to die. And so he gets fucking killed at the end of Dance because he's a good person who would have put the realm in a good place. And they need Cersei to fuck everything up. And so... We get a little of his ignorance here, but we do get that loyalty for his brother,
exactly.
and sort of his strategic. He knows his way around war and
Absolutely.
what he's doing. He didn't fight Tywin on it. He just offered an additional plan.
He's Lancel's father.
He's Lancel's father.
So for everyone who doesn't know,
Robert Squires there,
which
the
we get a
boy.
lot more of that guy.
And so those Kevin Lannister was both of our inductee for this
Good one. Obviously.
So we did get an inductee. Hopefully the Not So Silent Sisters are still staying safe down there with the storm. But we did get an inductee from France, from Julian.
What up, Julian? As always, thank you for writing in. So Julian said, reread that short but interesting chapter. He's not on our book, so he's coming back for these, which we appreciate. All hail to the Lannister wit. I'm sure someone will pick Tywin as an inductee. We basically just dedicated the whole chapter to him.
True that.
But that's why. And Tyrion would deserve to be the inductee of every chapter he's been in for now.
I agree.
Good point.
Julian, my boy
Tyrion. Julian's going to take a different route. I'm going to choose Timett.
Son of Timett.
Why? Read again. Every time he's mentioned or he's talking is an epic thing. Yo, I completely agree. That's why I wanted to only give his description with the clansmen at the beginning, because he was the one that really jumped out of all of them just for being this crazy badass motherfucker.
See, I agree with both of you, because everyone seems to like Shaga the most. And, like, Shaga's line gets boring to me. He's going to cut off your manhood and feed it to the goats.
Tyrion reads that one.
That's good. Like, that's a good line. That's Shaga, totally. But Timett is more interesting to me. He jabbed out his own fucking eye. Like, this dude's going to rip your fucking face off.
That's it.
And, like, say something grizzled and so badass that you're kind of like, cool, I died to this dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's
that's
cool.
it. Julian finishes off with, gotta love this scary dude, Valor Daharius. Yeah, scary dude, Valor Daharius. I don't know. Fucking sue me.
Valor Daharius, are you Aquarius? Jesus Christ on a cross. Anyway, those were our thoughts, inductees, and Julian's inductee from France. Thank you so much for writing in.
So we've got a pretty tight schedule with recording, guys. We're going to try and be pumping out some at a quick pace, so we will be recording a lot. Like, our plan is like 10 chapters in this upcoming week. So if you wanted to get any inductees,
you got to bulk them.
Shotgun them at us. Just fucking boom, boom, boom. Like 5 chapters at a time. It'll be sweet. Write to us. You can get a hold of us at all the normal places. Our email is withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter @mannerswithout. Zach is on Twitter @carstark92. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/brotherhoodpodcast. Instagram, same as my Twitter. That's fucking right. Same as my Twitter, @mannerswithout. And we are on Patreon with currently 2 of the sample chapter episodes up there.
2.
Mercy and Theon, patreon.com/withoutmanners. We have multiple tiers there, guys. Any of the levels, I believe, gets you the sample chapters.
We have multiple tiers there, guys.
Multiple tiers there, guys. So
Multiple tiers. Just get on those tiers.
Get on the tiers. Level up those tiers.
Next episode, we're going to be reading Sansa 5, and Sansa is going to be joining Joffrey's first court session as king and seeing some proclamations made. Yeah. And then after that, ladies and gentlemen, drumroll fucking please, we've got Eddard 15, which is Ned Stark's last chapter with us.
Nearly headless Ned.
As we go on, we remember Valador Harris.
Peace.
I will be.
Are you going to be doing it on your favorite app?
Well, I have a couple of them. Which one?
Well, the one I'm talking about is Podcoin, where you can listen and earn great rewards.
I'm pretty sure we have a code for that one.
We do. If you are a new user of Podcoin, you can type in Brotherhood and get 300 coins to spend on fucking cool stuff.
Sweet. Like giving to charity or gift cards?
Yeah, gift cards to like
Dope.
Starbucks and Amazon and all sorts of other places.
So if you're hearing this, why haven't you already downloaded Podcoin and
started listening
Brotherhood?
Listen to us there.
And earn some coins. Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.